The ground shook beneath his boots as the sky above darkened, casting a shadow over the small alien village. Isaac, a soldier from Earth, hadn't expected this. He had been sent on a routine mission to explore an unknown planet, but the moment he arrived, he knew something was wrong. The air was thick with tension, and the faint sound of distant roars echoed through the trees. He stepped forward, gripping his rifle tightly. The village, hidden deep in the forest, seemed peaceful at first glance. Strange, colorful buildings stood among the tall trees, and glowing flowers lit up the path. But there was no time to admire the beauty of the place. Isaac's instincts told him danger was near. As he walked through the village, he noticed strange movement in the shadows. His heart pounded in his chest. Then he heard loud, heavy footsteps, followed by growls and snarls. Isaac froze, his body tensing. He wasn't alone. Out of the darkness, a creature emerged. It was large, towering over him with sharp teeth and claws that could rip through metal. It was like nothing Isaac had ever seen before. The monster let out a terrifying roar, shaking the ground beneath him. Isaac's heart raced, but he didn't hesitate. He quickly raised his rifle and fired, the sharp sound of gunfire echoing. Through the village, the creature howled in pain, stumbling back. But it didn't stop. Instead, it charged at Isaac with even more fury. He took a step back, his mind racing. He couldn't take on this creature alone. There were too many of them. He had to protect the village, but he couldn't do it by himself. Isaac turned quickly, scanning the area for any sign of help. That's when he saw them, two small alien children, no older than 5 or 6. Standing behind a broken wall, their eyes wide with fear. They were trapped. Isaac's heart skipped a beat. He had to act fast. The creatures would tear through the village and the children if he didn't stop them now. Without thinking, Isaac ran towards the children, pushing past the glowing flowers and debris in his path. The sound of the creatures' growls grew louder. But Isaac didn't stop. He reached the children just in time, grabbing their arms and pulling them to safety. They were terrified, their eyes filled with confusion, but Isaac couldn't afford to explain. He had to keep them safe. The monsters were closing in. Isaac could hear their heavy breathing, the sound of claws scraping against the stone as they approached. He quickly turned to the children, trying to keep his voice calm. "Stay close to me," he said, his words firm but gentle. "Don't move and don't make a sound." The children nodded, their small hands gripping his uniform tightly. Isaac took a deep breath, scanning the area for a way out. He couldn't take them on his own, but there had to be a way to escape. The forest ahead looked like the only option, but it was too far. The monsters would catch up long before they could make it. Isaac's mind raced as he tried to come up with a plan. Then he spotted a small cave entrance hidden by vines. It wasn't much, but it was a chance. He turned back to the children, his eyes filled with urgency. "Follow me, stay close, and don't look back." The children nodded, their feet quickly following his lead. Isaac led them towards the cave, every step feeling like an eternity. Behind them, the sound of the creatures grew louder, but he kept moving, praying that they wouldn't catch up. Just as they reached the entrance, Isaac heard a roar behind him. He turned, his heart sinking as he saw the monsters closing in. There were more of them now, their eyes glowing in the dark. Isaac knew they wouldn't make it to the cave unless he fought back. His fingers tightened around his rifle. He had no choice. He couldn't let these children die. Not after everything they had been through. With a deep breath, he turned to face the creatures, his back to the cave and the children. The monsters were almost upon him. Isaac fired again, the sharp crack of the rifle ringing out. One of the creatures fell, but it wasn't enough. More were coming. Isaac's heart raced as he realized how outnumbered he was, but he couldn't give up. Not yet. He fired again, taking down another monster. But still, the others advanced. His arms ached, his body screamed for rest, but he pushed through the pain. He had to protect the children. He had to survive. With a final, desperate effort, Isaac took down one more creature, his rifle empty, but there were still more. He knew he couldn't keep fighting forever. His only hope now was the cave. With one last glance at the children, Isaac motioned for them to follow him inside. As they entered the cave, Isaac heard the sound of footsteps behind them. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time since he arrived, he felt a small sense of hope. They were safe for now, but how long would it last? The real fight was just beginning. Isaac took a deep breath as the cave's entrance loomed behind him. The creatures, monstrous and relentless, were now just a few steps away. His heart raced, but there was no time to dwell on fear. His hands shook with exhaustion, but the mission was far from over. They weren't safe yet. Inside the cave, the children huddled together, their tiny bodies trembling in the dim light. Isaac could see the fear in their eyes. They had no idea what was happening, but they knew enough to understand that their world was in danger. Isaac couldn't blame them. The world they lived in was strange, filled with things they should never have: two-faced monsters, bloodshed, and survival. Isaac turned back to the cave entrance, his rifle in hand. He wasn't sure how long they'd be safe here, but he knew it wouldn't be long. The creatures were out there, prowling. They wouldn't stop until they had destroyed everything in their path. Suddenly, the ground shook beneath him. The roar of the monsters echoed through the cave, vibrating the walls. Isaac's heart skipped a beat. They were closing in, with quick, practiced movements. Isaac rushed to the back of the cave, his boots scraping against the rocks. He crouched down, making sure the children were safely hidden behind a large boulder. He needed a plan, something, anything, to keep them alive. But as his eyes scanned the surroundings, all he saw were the sharp edges of the cave walls and the cold darkness of the unknown. The air was thick with the smell of earth and damp stone. But all Isaac could focus on was the sound of the monsters. Growls, growing louder with each passing second. They weren't just outside, they were already in the forest, their eyes glowing in the dark, searching for the cave. Isaac could almost feel their presence as they prowled around the entrance. Seeking any weakness, any chance to strike, he couldn't hold them off much longer. His body was aching from the previous battle, his energy spent. But he had no choice. These children had no one else to rely on. If he fell, they would be alone. Isaac tightened his grip on his rifle, steeling himself for what was to come. The monsters' roars echoed again, closer this time. Isaac knew they would come in waves, testing the defenses of the cave before making their final strike. He couldn't let them break through. The cave wasn't a fortress, was a temporary shelter. Nothing more. His only hope now was to keep them at bay long enough to make a plan. He motioned for the children to stay quiet, his voice barely a whisper. Stay hidden, stay safe. Don't move. The children nodded, wide, unscared. Isaac could only hope they understood the gravity of the situation. The monsters were close, and his options were running out. He took another glance outside. The first of the creatures appeared at the entrance. Its glowing eyes cut through the dark, scanning the cave's surroundings. It moved slowly, deliberately, as if it knew Isaac was close. The soldier's breath caught in his throat. He had no clear shot to many obstacles. If he missed, the creatures would flood in. Isaac steadied himself, keeping his movements as quiet as possible. The monster paused, sniffing the air, its growls echoing in the cave. It was smart, calculating. It knew it wasn't alone. Isaac's pulse quickened. He had one chance. If he could take this one down, the others might hesitate, might give him a few more precious seconds. Without hesitation, Isaac raised his rifle. He aimed at the creature's exposed side, steadying his breath. The moment he fired, the monster screeched, its body jerking back from the impact. But it didn't fall. Instead, it growled louder, more fiercely, its anger rising. Isaac's heart sank. He hadn't taken it down. Worse, the sound of the shot echoed through the cave, and the remaining monsters heard it from the darkness. More creatures appeared, their figures silhouetted in the dim light. Isaac's eyes darted back and forth, assessing the situation. There were too many of them. He couldn't hold them off forever. The children were still in danger. The monsters began to move in, cautiously at first, their eyes searching for any sign of Isaac. Their massive claws scraped against the stone, making a sound that sent shivers down his spine. Isaac backed further into the cave, pulling the children deeper into the shadows. He needed more time then. Something unexpected happened. The ground shook again, but this time it wasn't just the monsters. It was something else, something larger. Isaac's breath caught in his throat. Something was coming. The creatures stopped moving, sensing the same presence. They turned toward the entrance of the cave, their growls subsiding as they hesitated. Isaac's heart raced. This was their chance. With one final glance at the children, Isaac made his decision. It was now or never. He sprinted toward the entrance, moving with all the speed his tired body could muster. His rifle was raised, his focus laser sharp. The monsters heard him coming, but this time he had the element of surprise. Isaac fired again. A single shot piercing the air. The monster at the front of the pack stumbled, collapsing to the ground with a deafening roar. He'd taken it down, but that wasn't enough. There was still more to come. He had to keep fighting. Isaac's breath came in sharp gasps as he crouched low, his eyes scanning the cave entrance. The monsters were momentarily distracted, but Isaac knew they wouldn't stay that way for long. Their growls echoed, shifting the heavy air in the cave. His heart pounded in his chest, but he couldn't afford to lose focus, not when the lives of the alien children hung in the balance. He glanced at the kids hiding behind the large rock. They were terrified, their wide eyes staring back at him, silently pleading for safety. Isaac had seen fear before on Earth. In wars he'd fought, but seeing it reflected in their eyes hit him harder than any battle had before. He had to protect them, no matter the cost. But as the moments passed, Isaac's strength began to fade. His body ached from the earlier battle, the strain of carrying the weight of survival pressing down on him. He had used most of his ammo, and the monsters were multiplying. The odds were stacked against him. His mind raced for a plan, but it was hard to think with the pressure mounting then. In the midst of his thoughts, an old memory surfaced. A moment from his past, from another life he had almost forgotten. He remembered a promise he had made long ago to someone who had believed in him even when he doubted himself. He remembered his mother's words. When things seem impossible, remember who you are. You can be more than what you think. The words hit him like a bolt of lightning. Isaac clenched his fists, feeling something shift deep within him. It was as if that long-forgotten part of him, the part that had always believed in the impossible, had reawakened. For the first time in what felt like forever, he felt a surge of power, not from his weapon or his training, but from within. Himself, his purpose had never been clearer. These children needed him, and he wasn't about to let them down. Isaac stood tall, no longer just a soldier fighting for survival, but a protector fighting for something much bigger. The monsters outside had no idea what they were up against. As he moved toward the cave's entrance, his rifle felt lighter in his hands. The adrenaline coursed through him like fire. His body, despite its fatigue, moved with a new sense of urgency and precision. He had no time to waste. The monsters would be back, and this time he would be ready. Outside, the night air was heavy, thick, with the scent of earth and decay. Isaac peered around the corner of the cave entrance, eyes narrowing as he spotted the creatures gathering. Once more, their glowing eyes cut through the darkness, scanning the area with intelligence that sent a chill down his spine. These weren't just mindless beasts, they were predators. Calculating, patient, dangerous. Isaac didn't flinch. Instead, he took slow, deliberate steps toward the monsters, his rifle aimed steady. The first of the creatures, a hulking figure with scales like stone, spotted him and roared. It charged, its massive claws slicing through the air. Isaac fired, shot landing perfectly between the creature's eyes. It collapsed instantly, but the roar had signaled the others. They turned toward him, their snarls louder, their bodies more dangerous as they closed in. Isaac's hands shook, but not from fear. The heat of battle surged through his veins. His senses were heightened. He could hear every scrape of their claws, every breath they took. Like the world was slowing down around him. One by one, the monsters advanced, but Isaac didn't hesitate. He fired again, and another creature fell, and then another. Each shot was deliberate, powerful, and precise. The rifle felt like an extension of his body. He was no longer just reacting, he was in control. His mind was clear, the chaotic noise of the battle receding as he focused on the task at hand. But the monsters weren't going to make it easy. As more of them appeared, Isaac realized that his ammo was running low. His mind raced for alternatives. He couldn't afford to waste any more shots. He needed to think quickly. A plan began to form in his mind. It was risky, but it was the only option left. Isaac quickly darted back into the cave, grabbing a large piece of broken rock from the ground. He hurled it toward the monsters, watching as it crashed against the wall with a loud bang. The creatures hesitated for a moment, distracted by the noise. Isaac used the distraction to his advantage. He sprinted toward the deeper part of the cave, where a narrow passage led out to the forest. It was a gamble, but if he could lead the monsters away from the children, they might stand a chance. The creatures followed, their eyes glowing brighter in the dark as they closed in on Isaac. He kept running, not looking back, his mind calculating. Every step, he needed to get them far enough away from the cave. Far enough to give the children time to escape. But then, as Isaac rounded a corner, something unexpected happened. A low rumble shook the ground, followed by a loud, bone-rattling growl. From the shadows, a new creature appeared larger than anything Isaac had seen before. Its skin was covered in jagged armor, and its eyes burned like hot coals. It was the leader. The true threat. Isaac's heart skipped a beat. This was the monster he'd been waiting for. The one he had to defeat if he wanted any hope of keeping the children safe. With no other choice, Isaac turned to face the creature. He had no idea how he was going to beat it, but in that moment, he knew something had changed. He wasn't alone. The strength he had tapped into earlier surged once again. He wasn't just fighting for his life, he was fighting for theirs. He raised his rifle, aimed directly at the creature's heart, and fired. Isaac's heart pounded in his chest as he faced the monstrous leader. The creature loomed over him, its eyes glowing with a predatory gleam. Its body was massive, its armor-like skin reflecting the dim light of the moon. This was no ordinary monster, it was the Alpha, the one in charge. If Isaac couldn't defeat this beast, there would be no hope for the children, no chance of survival. The ground beneath Isaac's boots trembled as the creature let out a low growl. Its massive claws scraped against the stone, a sound that sent a chill down Isaac's spine. He had faced countless battles in his life, but nothing like this. The creature was too powerful, too imposing. Isaac's pulse quickened, but he didn't falter. He knew there was no choice but to fight. The creature moved first, lunging forward with terrifying speed. Isaac barely had time to react, rolling to the side just as the monster's claws slashed through the air where he had been standing moments before. His heart raced, but he didn't waste time thinking. He scrambled to his feet, quickly raising his rifle to take aim. The shot rang out, the bullet hitting the creature square in the chest, but it didn't even flinch. The monster's armor was impenetrable. Isaac cursed under his breath, knowing that his weapon alone wouldn't be enough. He had to outsmart it, outmaneuver it as the creature roared. Isaac dashed to the side, using the rocky terrain to his advantage. He moved quickly, hiding behind large boulders and jagged rock formations as the creature pursued him, its glowing eyes never leaving him. Isaac's mind raced. He had to find a way to stop it. There had to be a weakness somewhere. He remembered his training, every lesson. Every moment where survival depended on thinking fast. In that moment, he noticed something, a faint glimmer. In the darkness, the creature's underbelly was less armored than the rest of its body. Isaac's breath caught. That was his chance. He had to get close enough to strike without a second thought. Isaac sprinted toward the monster, zigzagging through the rocks to avoid the creature's swipe. The beast howled in fury, its massive jaws snapping shut just inches from Isaac's face. He barely managed to dodge, rolling onto the ground with a grunt of pain. His body screamed in protest, but Isaac pushed through it. The children's lives were at stake. There was no room for hesitation. He sprang to his feet, his movements fueled by a mix of determination and desperation. As the monster turned to face him, Isaac dove to the ground, sliding under the beast's body and aiming his rifle upward. His finger tightened on the trigger. The bullet hit its mark, right under the creature's thick armor. The monster let out a deafening roar, staggering back, its claws scraping the stone as it struggled to regain balance. Isaac didn't wait for it to recover. He charged forward, using the rifle as a makeshift weapon, slamming the barrel into the creature's side with all his strength. The monster howled in pain, but it wasn't enough to take it down. Isaac's heart raced. He could feel the weight of the battle bearing down on him, but he refused to give up then. Just as the creature reared up to strike again, something changed. The cave entrance trembled as a second roar echoed from behind him. Isaac froze, his blood running cold. He glanced back, expecting to see more of the monsters, but instead, a new figure emerged from the shadows. It was another Aliano warrior, tall and powerful, with a weapon that glowed with a fierce light. The new arrival stepped forward with a quiet confidence, locking eyes with Isaac. The creature paused, sensing the new threat. For a moment, there was a standoff. The alpha monster growled, its eyes flickering with anger as it sized up the new warrior. Isaac didn't know who this newcomer was or where they had come from, but in that instant, he realized something: he wasn't alone. The battle had shifted. He now had an ally. The warrior's weapon crackled with energy, its blade shining like a comet as it cut through the air. With one swift movement, the warrior slashed at the creature's side, carving through the monster's tough hide. The alpha screeched in pain, staggering back in surprise. Isaac seized the opportunity, firing another round at the creature's exposed underbelly. This time, the bullet found its mark. The alpha monster let out a final roar before collapsing to the ground, its massive body crashing into the rocks. Isaac stood frozen for a moment, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The battle wasn't over, but the immediate danger had passed. For now, they had won. The alien warrior approached Isaac, its glowing blade still humming with energy. Isaac felt a rush of gratitude toward this unexpected ally. He wasn't sure who this warrior was or why they had come to help, but he wasn't about to question it. They had saved his life and the children's lives. "You fought well," the warrior said, its voice calm and steady. Isaac was surprised to hear words, the alien's language coming out surprisingly clear in his own tongue. But there is more to do. The others will come. They always come. Isaac nodded, still catching his breath. We don't have much time, he said, glancing over his shoulder at the children, who were now peeking out from behind the rocks. We need to get them to safety. The warrior gave a slight nod, and without another word, they moved toward the cave's entrance. Isaac followed closely, feeling the weight of the battle lift off his shoulders for the first time since it began. But there was still more to face. This wasn't over yet. Isaac stood at the edge of the cave, his rifle gripped tightly in his hands. His muscles burned from the battle, but his focus was sharper than ever. The alien warrior beside him, still a mystery in many ways, had become his unexpected ally. Together, they had managed to defeat the monstrous Alpha, but the fight wasn't over. The rest of the pack was out there. And they wouldn't stop until they had destroyed everything in their path. The alien children were now safely tucked away behind a cluster of boulders in the cave. Watching with wide eyes as Isaac and his new ally prepared for what was sure to come. Isaac could feel the weight of their gaze, a reminder of what he was fighting for. Their safety was all that mattered now. You did well, the warrior said, its voice low and calm, almost distant. But the rest of them are not far behind. We need to prepare. Isaac nodded, his mind racing. He had no idea what would happen next. The monsters had been relentless, and every passing minute felt like a ticking clock. He needed a strategy, a way to fight back before they were completely overwhelmed. They'll come in waves. The warrior continued, studying the surroundings. We have time, but not much. We need to use the cave's layout to our advantage. Isaac's eyes scanned the area. The cave was large, but its walls were jagged, filled with tight corners and narrow paths. It wasn't much of a defense, but it was all they had. He could hear the monsters growling in the distance, their sounds like thunder rolling across the land. They were getting closer. Can you hold them off if I create a distraction? Isaac asked, his voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through his veins. The warrior glanced at him, a look of understanding passing between them. You distract, I'll strike. Isaac nodded. The plan was risky, but it was their only chance. The alien warrior, with its glowing weapon, would be the one to deal the final blow to the monsters. But Isaac would need to draw them in first. With a final glance at the children, Isaac took a deep breath and stepped out from the safety of the cave's shadows. He moved quickly, darting between rocks and boulders, his rifle at the ready. The growls of the monsters grew louder as he made his way to the mouth of the cave. He had to get their attention, make them focus on him long enough for the warrior. To get into position, suddenly, a flash of movement caught Isaac's eye. From the trees beyond the cave, he saw the first of the monsters creeping forward, its eyes glowing fiercely in the dark. The others were close behind, and they would soon be upon him. Isaac raised his rifle, aiming at the first creature. He fired, the bullet striking the monster's shoulder. It let out a furious howl, stumbling back in pain. Isaac's heart raced as the rest of the pack, drawn to the sound, charged forward. He had their attention now. The monster leader at the front of the pack let out a deafening roar, its claws raking the ground as it barreled toward Isaac. Isaac didn't hesitate. He fired again, hitting the creature's leg. The monster howled in rage but didn't stop. Isaac took a step back, ready to make his next move. Just as the monsters closed in, the warrior appeared, its weapon crackling with energy. With a swift movement, the warrior leaped forward, its blade glowing brightly as it cut through the air. The first monster to charge at Isaac was sliced in half in an instant. The force of the blow sent the creature's remains crashing to the ground. Isaac couldn't help but watch in awe. The warrior moved with deadly grace, each strike precise, powerful, and efficient. The monsters, taken by surprise, hesitated for a split second. That was all Isaac needed. He fired again, taking down another creature as the rest of the pack. Regrouped, the battle had shifted. The monsters were no longer the hunters, they were the hunted. Isaac continued to fire, using the narrow paths between the cave's walls to his advantage. The creatures, too large and slow, had trouble maneuvering through the tight spaces. The warrior, ever precise, continued its assault, cutting down monster after monster with incredible speed. But Isaac knew they couldn't keep this up forever. The numbers were still against them, and the creatures were relentless. Suddenly, one of the monsters, larger and faster than the others, broke through the line. Charging directly at Isaac, he barely had time to react before it lunged its claws, swiping dangerously close. Isaac fired, but the shot missed, grazing the creature's side. It let out a roar, ready to finish the job. But before Isaac could even raise his rifle again, the warrior was there. With a swift move, the warrior slashed through the creature's chest, its glowing blade leaving a trail of light in the air. The monster stumbled back, falling to the ground with a thud. Isaac breathed a sigh of relief, but there was no time to rest. The creatures were still coming, and they were angrier than ever. Isaac and the warrior fought side by side, their movements synchronized, a deadly dance against the relentless tide of monsters. In the chaos, Isaac found a moment of clarity. He wasn't just fighting for his life anymore. He was fighting for the future of these children, for the future of the village. And for the first time since he'd arrived on this alien world, he felt the full weight of his purpose. Atis he wasn't just an outsider anymore. He was their protector. The last monster fell, its body crumpling to the ground with a sickening sound. Isaac stood, panting heavily, his rifle still gripped tightly in his hands. The cave was silent now, save for the distant sound of the wind. Isaac turned to the warrior, who was wiping the blood from its blade. Without a word, they exchanged a look of mutual respect. They had won for now. The silence that followed the final monster's fall felt deafening. Isaac stood, panting heavily, his chest heaving with each breath. The cave was littered with the bodies of the fallen creatures, a grim testament to the battle they had just fought. The air was thick with the smell of blood and sweat, and the distant wind whispered softly through the cave's opening. But for Isaac, the battle wasn't truly over, not yet. He turned to the warrior, still standing at his side, the glowing blade in its hand, now dimming as the light began to fade. Despite the exhaustion written on both of their faces, they hadn't lost. They had survived. The monsters were gone, but there was a deep, gnawing silence in the aftermath, a silence that felt both like relief and loss. Isaac's heart beat a little slower, but the adrenaline hadn't completely faded. "You fought well," the warrior said, its voice quiet but filled with a deep respect. "We did what we had to do. The children are safe." Isaac nodded, his eyes moving toward the back of the cave where the alien children were still hiding behind the large boulders. Their wide eyes watched him with both awe and fear. They had seen things that no child should ever witness, things Isaac couldn't even imagine in their place. He wasn't just their protector, now he was their lifeline, the one who had risked everything to save them. "Are they all right?" Isaac asked, his voice gruff. He couldn't help the worry that crept into his chest. He'd fought through hell to protect them, but he needed to know they were truly okay. The warrior turned its gaze toward the children and then back to Isaac. "They are scared, but they are alive. That is what matters." Isaac exhaled sharply. That was all he needed to hear. The mission had been a success against all odds. They had won, but Isaac knew the true cost of survival. It wasn't just about defeating the monsters. It was about what came next. The children, the survivors, had witnessed brutality. Their world had been torn apart, and Isaac had no illusions about what they would face in the days to come. He turned away, heading back toward the children, each step a reminder of the toll the battle had taken. He felt the weight of their eyes on him, their silent gratitude heavier than anything he had carried before. They had been so brave, so full of hope, and now they were safe. At least for now. Isaac knelt down in front of them, his face softening. "You're safe now," he said quietly. "I'm here. No one will hurt you." The children didn't say anything, but they finally let go of the fear that had been gripping them. One of them, a little girl with bright purple skin and large black eyes, stepped forward, her tiny hands reaching out toward Isaac. She looked up at him with a mixture of gratitude and confusion. Isaac's heart tightened. He had saved them, but how would they ever truly heal from the horrors they'd witnessed? Isaac reached out gently, placing a hand on her head. She leaned into his touch, her small body trembling but steadying against his hand. He felt a deep sense of responsibility settle in his chest. This was far from over. The children needed more than protection, they needed guidance. And they needed a future that didn't feel like a nightmare. The warrior stepped forward, standing silently behind Isaac. Its gaze lingered on the children for a moment before it spoke again. "We need to leave the cave. The monsters were not the only threat. We must go to the village." Isaac stood, helping the children to their feet. The weight of the situation was dawning on him. The victory had come at a high price. There was no more time to rest. The alien village, the place he had stumbled upon in the first place, was likely still at risk. The battle may have been won, but there were other dangers lurking on the horizon. The warrior began to move toward the cave's exit, its pace purposeful. Isaac followed, the children clinging to him as they moved. The quiet outside felt almost eerie after the chaos of the battle, as if the world itself had taken a breath and was holding it in. Waiting for what would come next, Isaac led the children toward the safety of the village, the warrior's steady presence behind him. The village was not far, but Isaac knew the real struggle was just beginning. They had survived the monsters, but there were still unanswered questions. Who had sent the creatures? Why had they attacked? And what was waiting for them in the village? As they entered the village, Isaac's eyes scanned the surroundings. The damage was evident. Buildings that had once been filled with life now stood empty, darkened and desolate. The quiet was oppressive, a stark contrast to the chaos they had just escaped. The warrior led them to the center of the village, where a group of alien survivors had gathered. They were wary at first, eyes filled with distrust, but when they saw the children, something changed. The tension eased slightly, and a few stepped forward. One of the elders, a tall alien with silver markings across its skin, approached Isaac. "You've done what we couldn't," it said, its voice heavy with gratitude. "For that, we owe you everything." Isaac shook his head, exhaustion settling deep in his bones. "I didn't do it alone," he replied, glancing at the warrior. "We all did this together." The elder nodded solemnly. "You've saved us, and for that, we will never forget." Isaac looked down at the children standing between the elder and the warrior. They were safe. For now. But in that moment, Isaac knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter. He had come to this world as an outsider, but now he was part of something larger. He was a protector, a hero in a strange alien world. Isaac stood amidst the remnants of the village, his gaze sweeping over the survivors. The alien faces were filled with a quiet, reserved gratitude, but their eyes were also tinged with sadness. They had lost so much: homes, families, and a sense of peace that would be hard to reclaim. But there was one thing they had left: hope. And Isaac had given it to them. Even if he didn't fully understand how the children huddled near the elder, their small figures clinging to each other for comfort. Isaac could see the weight of their fear still clinging to them, but there was something different now. They were no longer the terrified, lost souls they had been when he first met them. They were survivors, just like him. The elder, who had approached Isaac earlier, stood in front of him now, its eyes searching his face. "We owe you more than words can express. Human," it said, its voice low but sincere. "You've saved our children, our future. Without you, we would have fallen." Isaac shook his head, not wanting to take credit for something that felt like a shared effort. "It wasn't just me," he replied quietly. "I had help. I couldn't have done this alone." The elder's eyes flickered to the warrior standing beside Isaac, still a silent figure, but one Isaac had come to trust as much as any ally. The warrior nodded slightly, acknowledging the unspoken bond between them. "You are right," the elder said, its voice softer now. "You had help. And yet, it was you who gave us the chance to survive. It was your courage that inspired us all." Isaac shifted uncomfortably, not used to being the center of attention, especially not for something so monumental. He wasn't a hero, he was just a soldier, doing his job. But there was no denying the bond that had formed between him and the alien people. He had fought for them. And in return, they had shown him something he hadn't known he was searching for: purpose. The elder took a step forward, its hand extending toward Isaac. "You ask for nothing, but we have much to give. In our way, we offer you what we can. Our lives, our gratitude, and something more." Isaac frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" Without a word, the elder turned toward the village's central structure, a tall, ornate building that had once served as a meeting place for the community. It was now a symbol of their survival, their resilience. The elder gestured for Isaac to follow. Isaac walked beside the elder, glancing over his shoulder at the warrior, who had moved silently to the edge of the gathering. The alien children were watching him, their eyes filled with a mix of curiosity and gratitude, but they remained still. Isaac didn't want to think about what they'd witnessed. They would need time, just like he would, to process what had happened. As they entered the structure, Isaac was taken aback by the beauty of the place. Despite the damage the monsters had caused, there was a quiet elegance to the space-intricate carvings in the walls. Strange symbols etched into the floor, and a central pool of glowing water that seemed to hum with energy. It was unlike anything he had ever seen before. The elder stopped at the edge of the pool, turning back to face Isaac. "What we offer you, human, is not just our thanks. It is a bond. A pact." Isaac raised an eyebrow, unsure of what the elder meant. "A pact, yes," the elder said, nodding. "You have given us life, but you have also given us something more: a chance for a future. And in return, we offer you a gift. A gift that transcends our worlds." The elder's hands moved gracefully, tracing a pattern in the air above the pool. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the water in the pool began to ripple, glowing brighter, and a soft hum filled the air. Isaac stepped forward, unsure of what to make of it, his senses on high alert. He had seen strange things during his time on this planet, but this was different. This felt powerful. The elder spoke again, its voice calm and steady. "In our culture, there is a bond between protector and protected, between those who fight for others and those who are saved. This bond is more than an obligation, it is a mark of honor, a gift that unites two souls." Isaac's heart skipped a beat. "Are you saying that? You want to bond with me?" The elder's eyes softened. "Yes. In exchange for your bravery, we offer you our protection as well. The bond will not only grant you strength, but it will also connect us. You will be part of us, and we will be part of you." Isaac stood still, processing what the elder was saying. He didn't understand it fully, but there was a deep sincerity in the elder's voice that made him trust the offer. In a world so far from his own, with so much uncertainty. The idea of being truly connected to someone, of finding purpose in this new, strange place, was more than he could have ever imagined. The elder extended its hand once again, this time more insistent. "You will not be alone, human. We will fight for you, as you have fought for us." Isaac hesitated, his mind racing. He had come to this world expecting nothing, but now found himself standing on the precipice of something bigger than he could have ever anticipated. He had saved these people, and now they were offering him a future that didn't just belong to him. But to all of them, he took a deep breath and finally extended his hand toward the elder. "Then let's do this. Let's fight together." The moment their hands met, a surge of energy flowed through Isaac, a warmth that spread through his body like fire and light. It was a feeling unlike anything he had ever experienced, familiar, yet alien. It was as if a part of him had connected with something much larger, something that would always be with him. He felt stronger, not just physically, but emotionally. The weight of the battle, of the loss and pain, seemed lighter now. He wasn't alone anymore. As the connection deepened, Isaac knew that his life had changed forever. This world, these people, had become his new family, and together they would rebuild.